Last September, Iron Harvest surprised me with its high-quality single-player campaign, which did a great job of showing off this dieselpunk real-time strategy game's big, stompy mechs. The Operation Eagle expansion isn't quite as big a hit. While it does introduce a new America-inspired faction, with a new story-driven campaign that has the same level of impressive cutscenes and voice acting you'd expect, air combat ends up disrupting the carefully constructed, cover-based warfare in ways that make it less interesting instead of more. Even so, Operation Eagle's campaign and faction design are still a worthy addition to Iron Harvest's battlefield. As a fan of the Iron Harvest universe of 1920+, I was thrilled to explore the new faction, Usonia. Its forces are focused on air power more than mech power, which showcases airship combat. But disappointingly, the airships just don't feel like a great fit when you compare them to Iron Harvest's signature mechs. The mechs stomp, smash, and bash their way across the battlefield, leaving a trail of wreckage in their wake, and each has its own style of maneuvering.
Pull back!
The airships just float, slowly. The way they move and attack feels out of place. They feel like dull hovercraft, stopping, accelerating, and turning on a pin. And their effect on battlefields that have, up until this point, been so very about terrain, cover, and line of sight is audacious. They just cruise on past all that interesting stuff, very literally ignoring it, by shooting over terrain that others can't fire back through, like tall walls.
Roosevelt revolutionaries have stormed the refinery, halting all shipments to the Union. You know what that means.
It means we kicked their ass!
Once I got past that, however, I did get to appreciate the smart design that went into the new faction, and even some nuance to the new air units. Usonia's mechs and airships are brilliant. Their basic mech, the M29 Salem, looks like an Airstream tractor body welded to two chunky T-Rex legs.
Blazing fire!
While the ZR-3 Revere airship is a beautiful, streamlined locomotive with ducted rotors, a big rear propeller, and inline pods of rockets.
Engaging enemy forces! Watch on!
The contrast between militarized utilitarian farm equipment and Art Deco futurism works surprisingly well. Playing Usonia is a nice change of pace from the main campaign factions. Their early stage tech lacks potent anti-armor mechs, meaning they rely on hit-and-run tactics from their aerial ranged units, or ambushes with cannons and anti-armor guns. As they transition into their middle stage, however, they roll out the Nox mech and become increasingly powerful. Where some mechs in Iron Harvest feel like they take ages between shots, the Nox seems to never stop firing. There are also some subtle touches that make Usonia fun to play as, from American-influenced visual design to various regional accents.
Waiting for orders!
Tell me there's a plan!
Usonia's design succeeds in making an appropriately over-the-top alternate American culture to compete with the national caricatures that make up the existing Polonian, Roosevelt, and Saxony factions.
Now it's a party!
Speaking of the world, the new Usonia campaign spreads a lot of story across about 10 hours worth of missions, and mostly succeeds at it. It's got the same high quality of cinematics and mission design I enjoyed in the first campaign, with the added aerial twist for a bit of flavor. The story follows Usonian Captain William Mason, from interfering in the Roosevelt Revolution in Alaska to fighting alongside anti-colonial revolutionaries against Saxony in Arabia.
America used to be a colony itself. We have a soft spot for people fighting European imperialists.
The story of Mason and the revolutionary leader, Sita al-Hadid, is interesting. Though it does very much borrow from the obvious Lawrence of Arabia parallel, the Arabians are the key actors in their own fight for independence. Nearly every mission gives you Arabian recruits fighting for their country, as well as unique Arabian units. For a cliché story about colonialism and Americans looking for oil across the world, It's a surprisingly complete take on a potentially hot-button issue.
Go back where you came from, American. Arabia has already been sold.
The missions themselves are a little less interesting. They're mostly stand-up base fights with a twist or two, but there are some high points. My favorite has you breaking into a fortress through the rear, which means you must ferry infantry soldiers by air to a separate series of high bluffs, so that you can flank the enemy while your mechs engage in a brutal war of armored attrition to protect your own base. A lot of the fighting, due to how the Usonia faction is designed, is this: creeping forward, blasting fixed anti-aircraft guns with artillery.
Hurry up and wait. Same thing, different day.
And then moving up your brutally effective Samson air carriers to bomb the enemy into oblivion. That might be boring, but the Samson and its drones are such a delight to watch.
You think the new king is a friend to the Union, Captain? I'd say no.
With the same stellar visual design as the main game, Iron Harvest Operation Eagle is a welcome addition to the dieselpunk RTS. The new Usonia faction looks fantastic and is fun to play, even if the marquee feature of airships is a bit lackluster in action. Its story campaign is what really makes it stand out, with interesting classic-style RTS missions interspersed with a look into a fascinating alternate history where giant robots smash stuff.
Oh, hell's breaking loose! Alright.
For more, check out our review of the original Iron Harvest campaign. And for everything else, stick with IGN.